The night I left home, it was raining. I remember standing in my bedroom, staring at the college acceptance letter from MIT that now meant nothing. My hands trembled as I packed my backpack. Some clothes, my laptop, and the $200 I'd saved from my part-time job at the local bookstore. The rest of my savings, nearly $60,000 I'd earned from coding websites since I was 14, had vanished along with my college fund. My name is Emma Chin, and 12 hours earlier, my parents had casually announced over dinner that they'd given my entire college fund to my older brother, Daniel. He needs it more than you do, my mother had explained, not even looking up from her plate. His startup is struggling, and this money could help him turn things around. But that's my college fund. I protested, my voice shaking. I've been accepted to MIT. Tuition is due next month. My father's response was sharp. Daniel has real potential. His business idea could make millions. You just want to study computer science. Any state school will do for that. I looked at Daniel, expecting him to say something to show some sign of guilt for taking my future. Instead, he just smirked. Thanks, Mom and Dad. I won't let you down. The worst part wasn't just losing my college fund. They'd also taken my personal savings account, the one they'd insisted I open under their names because I was still a minor. For safekeeping, they'd said, every dollar I earned coding websites, building apps, and working overtime at the bookstore, gone. Now, at midnight, I stood in my room making the hardest decision of my life. On my desk sat a notebook filled with ideas, algorithms I'd developed, solutions to problems that major tech companies hadn't even recognized yet. My brother's brilliant startup idea was just another food delivery app. But my parents had never bothered to understand what I was working on. I heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly turned off my light, pretending to be asleep. My mother's shadow paused at my door. She'll get over it, I heard her tell my father. Daniel is the one with the business sense. Emma just plays with computers all day. Plays with computers, that's how they saw my work, even after I'd won the state programming championship 3 years running. Even after my coding projects had earned me that MIT scholarship, the one that would now go to waste because I couldn't afford the remaining tuition. I waited until their footsteps faded and the house fell silent. Then, moving quietly, I pulled out the emergency backpack I'd prepared earlier. Along with clothes and basic necessities, it contained something far more valuable. A small external hard drive containing all my code, my projects, and most importantly, the algorithm I've been perfecting for the past 2 years. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Sarah. My mom's waiting 2 blocks away. Are you sure about this? I took one last look around my room. The coding competition trophies my parents had never displayed. The acceptance letter from MIT that had once meant everything. The family photo where Daniel stood front and center, his arm around our beaming parents, while I stood slightly apart, already becoming invisible. Yes, I texted back. I'm sure. I didn't leave a note. What was there to say? They'd made their choice, prioritizing Daniel's half-baked startup over my education, my dreams, my future. Now I was making mine. The rain had softened to a drizzle as I climbed down the trellis outside my window. Sarah's mom, Mrs. Rodriguez, was waiting in her car exactly where she promised. She'd been more of a mother to me over the years than my own, always attending my competitions, actually asking about my projects. Oh honey, she whispered as I slid into the backseat, my clothes damp from the rain. Are you absolutely certain? I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. As we drove away, I watched my childhood home disappear into the darkness. I had $200 to my name, a backpack full of dreams, and no idea what came next. Mrs. Rodriguez had offered to let me stay with them, but I knew my parents would look there first. Instead, she drove me to the bus station, pressing an envelope into my hands. Sarah told me what happened, she said softly. This isn't much, but it should help you get started. Inside was $1,000, their family's vacation fund. I tried to refuse, but she wouldn't hear of it. You have a gift, Emma. Don't let anyone dim your light. The first bus to Boston left at 6 a.m. I had chosen Boston for a reason, not just because of MIT, but because the city was a tech hub, full of startups and opportunities. More importantly, it was far enough away that my parents wouldn't think to look there. As the bus pulled away from the station, I opened my laptop. The algorithm I'd been working on wasn't just another app idea. It was a revolutionary approach to data processing. something that could change how companies handled massive information systems. I had already tested it in small ways, optimizing local businesses' databases. I knew it worked. I just needed a chance to prove it. My phone buzzed again. My parents had finally discovered I was gone. The messages started pouring in. "Where are you? Come home right now. Don't be dramatic. We can discuss this. You're being selfish. Think about your brother's future." I turned off my phone and looked out the window at the sunrise painting the sky in shades of possibility. They thought they had taken everything from me, but they hadn't. They couldn't take my mind, my skills, or my determination. I pulled out my notebook and began writing, planning my next steps. I had enough money for about 2 weeks in a cheap hostel. I needed to find a job quickly, something that would cover basic expenses while leaving me time to work on my algorithm. More importantly, I needed to find a way to prove that my parents' lack of faith in me was their biggest mistake. The boy sitting next to me glanced at my notebook, filled with lines of code and complex diagrams. "That looks intense," he commented. "Are you a programmer?" I smiled, thinking of my mother's dismissive words. "No," I replied. "I'm a future CEO. I just don't know it yet." 10 years is a long time to live with anger, but success is the best revenge. I sat in my corner office on the 47th floor of our company headquarters, staring at the email that had just arrived. Forbes wanted to feature me on their cover. 30 Under 30 had been 2 years ago. This was the main magazine, and they wanted to tell my story. The irony wasn't lost on me. Below my window, I could see the building where I'd spent my first 3 months in Boston, working as a night janitor. During the day, I coded in public libraries, using their free Wi-Fi to develop my algorithm. At night, I cleaned offices, carefully observing how different companies operated. My phone buzzed. A message from Sarah, still my best friend after all these years. "Have you seen it? Your brother's company finally went under." I had seen it. Daniel's food delivery app had burned through my college fund and 3 rounds of investor money before finally collapsing. My parents had lost everything trying to keep his dream alive. "Ms. Chen," my assistant's voice came through the intercom. "The board meeting starts in 10 minutes. I gathered my materials, smoothing my designer suit, a far cry from the second-hand clothes I'd worn during those early days in Boston. The memory of my first big break was still vivid in my mind. It had happened during my 3rd month as a janitor. I was cleaning the offices of a mid-sized tech company when I noticed their system had crashed. Their entire team was working late, panicking over lost data and corrupted databases. I still don't know what gave me the courage, but I walked straight up to their director and said, "I can fix this." He had laughed at first, this janitor in a worn uniform claiming she could solve what his entire team couldn't. But desperation made him willing to try anything. 3 hours later, their systems were running faster than ever. My algorithm didn't just recover their data, it revolutionized how their entire system processed information. By morning, I had a job offer as their lead systems architect. Within 6 months, I had patented my algorithm. A year later, I founded my own company, Nova Tech Solutions. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. 10 years ago, I was a 17-year-old with $200 to my name. Now I ran a company valued at over $4 billion. The quarterly results have exceeded all projections. I began, clicking through my presentation. Our new data processing systems have been adopted by 8 Fortune 500 companies, and we're projecting. A notification popped up on my phone. Another message from Sarah. "Your parents are trying to reach you through my mom. They've seen the Forbes announcement." I dismissed the notification. Let them wait. After the meeting, I returned to my office to find an email from my mother. The first contact in 10 years. "Dearest Emma, we've seen the news about your upcoming Forbes cover. Your father and I are so proud. We always knew you had potential. Perhaps we could meet for dinner. There's so much to discuss, especially given your brother's recent setbacks." I deleted the email without replying. Through Sarah, I'd heard enough about their lives over the years. How they remortgaged their house to fund Daniel's failing company. How they bragged about his certain success right up until the end. My assistant knocked on my door. "The Forbes photographer is here for the cover shoot." I smiled. "Send them in. And Clara, after this, please clear my schedule. I want to visit someone." 2 hours later, I pulled up outside the modest house where Mrs. Rodriguez still lived. She opened the door and hugged me tight, just like she had the night she drove me to the bus station. I saw the announcement, she beamed. Though I don't need Forbes to tell me how amazing you are. Over coffee, she told me my parents had been calling her constantly since the Forbes announcement went public. They want to know if I can arrange a meeting, she said carefully. They say they want to apologize. I stirred my coffee, thinking about that rainy night 10 years ago. Did they ever apologize to you? For how they treated you after you helped me? She shook her head. When my parents discovered she had helped me leave, they had threatened to sue her, called her employer, tried to get her fired. She had stood firm, protecting me. The Forbes interview is next week, I said finally. I think it's time everyone heard the real story. The article came out a month later. My face on the cover, my story laid bare. How I left home with $200, built a billion-dollar company from scratch, revolutionized data processing. The journalist hadn't pulled any punches, including my parents' choice to take my college fund and my brother's subsequent business failure. The morning it hit newsstands, I arrived at my office to find my parents waiting in the lobby. My mother clutched a copy of Forbes. My father stood with his hands in his pockets. They looked older, tired, nothing like the confident parents who had dismissed my dreams. Emma, my mother stepped forward. We've come to apologize. We were wrong about you, about everything. I held up my hand, stopping her. 10 years, I said quietly. 10 years of no contact, except when you needed something. And now you're here, after seeing me on the cover of Forbes. We're still your parents, my father protested weakly. No, I corrected him. Mrs. Rodriguez is more of a parent to me than either of you ever were. She believed in me when you couldn't be bothered to even understand what I was working on. But we're family, my mother insisted. Surely that counts for something. I looked at them, really looked at them. Family? I laughed softly. Family doesn't steal their child's college fund. Family doesn't dismiss their daughter's dreams as playing with computers. Family believes in you, supports you, loves you unconditionally. I pressed the elevator button, stepping inside. I have a board meeting to attend. Don't contact me again through Mrs. Rodriguez or anyone else. I'm not the desperate 17-year-old you abandoned anymore. As the doors closed, I saw tears in my mother's eyes. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old pain. Then I remembered their faces over dinner that night, so casually destroying my future to bet on my brother instead. Today, Nova Tech Solutions continues to grow. We've expanded into artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and revolutionary data systems. I started a scholarship fund for young programmers, ensuring no talented student has to choose between education and survival. Sarah runs our charitable foundation, focusing on helping teens in crisis. Mrs. Rodriguez sits on the board, bringing her wisdom and compassion to every decision. My parents? They finally sold their house to pay off Daniel's debts. Last I heard, he was working as a delivery driver for one of the apps that had put his company out of business. Sometimes, late at night in my office, I look at that first MIT acceptance letter, now framed on my wall. Below it sits a printed copy of my first bank statement after leaving home. $200 to my name and a world of possibility ahead. They say success is the best revenge, but I've learned it's more than that. Success is proving to yourself that you were right to believe in your dreams, even when no one else did. And sometimes, the best thing your parents can give you is the motivation to prove them wrong.